This is Katie Shell, and this is Being Lilith. And so, one of the things, and the thing that I'm wanting to address in this video, is this idea of what it means to have primal instincts and what it is to follow those guidelines of what our physical instincts are telling us, and how this is different. It's not totally separate, but it's not the same thing as kind of animalistic urges. And so it's much more, I mean, a lot of them come down to being expressed as survival instincts, whether it's kind of, I don't feel safe, and I need to leave. This is definitely a Lilith thing. I don't feel safe. I need to stay. I need to feel protected. These are all these are issues. Other ones, my physical body is craving connection with another being. Sexual, physical urges are asking to be experienced and witnessed and shared. Food, we need to eat. We need these things to survive. We need to feed ourselves in order to survive. Yet we suppress some of these things, and we suppress these parts of us. But where are the urges coming from? Yes, there is this animalistic side of it. And like I said, you can't really, it's not that they're separate. It's just that they are much more complex and much more nuanced and much more layered. The reason that Lilith is something that represents our primal nature is because it is something that existed before the dominant linear structure of the masculine took over or really existed. And so it's not to say that one is more evolved or one is more or preferable to the other in any way at all. But it is to say that because this came first, it is the thing, it is prime. It is the prime, it is, it's the beginning. And so we tune back into that by removing the structures, by removing the layers, by removing the conditions that we have been given in order to be allowed to express our physical needs. So trusting that, being open to that, being aware of it, and not holding on to this fear, because it comes from fear. When we're taking in a lot of different information, so we can feed ourselves. My body is starving and I need to eat. And this is a thing that happens with kids a lot, with when parents are telling their kids what to eat. Well, if you were really hungry, you'd eat that thing that you hate that's in front of you. Well, sure. If you're starving, you're going to eat anything in front of you. That's, to me, something that is much more animalistic in nature. Nuanced direction, nuanced understanding, receptiveness, receiving nuances and cues from the body is this food that is right in front of me. Let's say it's a steak. It's kind of an animalistic sort of food to eat anyway. It's kind of a primal food, like we need steak. And it's something that has a lot of a judgment around whether or not, because this is something that I've personally dealt with, so this is a good example. And there's certain rules about why that people say you're not supposed to eat red meat. or people say you're not supposed to eat animals and you're not supposed to do this and you're not supposed to do that. But my body at several times in my life has craved red meat. And why is that? Well, it's an iron deficiency. It's it's funny. It's always been a funny thing to me. Women are much more prone to anemia and iron deficiency because we lose blood um, once a month, and but steak and red meat is always considered a manly thing or a masculine thing, and that's a cultural conditioning rather than trusting what our bodies say. And you'll see you'll see nutritionists who are much more tuned in to the fact that all bodies are different and all bodies receive and require different things. But I stopped eating red meat for a long time because of all of the things that I was told not to do it. Not for a very long time, because I've always been pretty in tune to what my body needs. Um, I suppress it. I add, you add layers to it. You kind of do different things to get around it, or feel ashamed for it, for the shame that comes from like eating red meat because somebody says that you're not supposed to, is some, and then you hide it, and then like all sorts of weird things we do to ourselves in order to avoid judgment and shame. And when really our body said, my body was saying it needs steak, it needs red meat, it 100% red needs red meat. And so I trust that and I listen to that and I feel a lot better when I eat red meat. I will, no doubt in my mind. And so trusting that, it's not that that understanding is more nuanced. It's more about checking in, not just that I need food, but I need something to help. I need protein. I need iron. I need, and the other kind of micro and macronutrients that come from this particular food that my body is desiring. And when all we're doing is focusing on starving eat, and not to say that animals aren't able to do this as well, but it's much more, it's much simpler then. And so we trust that, and we trust that instincts, that our body is craving something and is desiring something, and we listen to it and we experience it in the way that we would like to and the way that our bodies require. And so, and again, this is going to be a whole other subject of video with about food and body shaming and food shaming and all of those things that contribute to our inability to listen to our body, because we're told that the things that are, well, that's the whole thing. That's one of these overreaching, maybe overarching themes with all of the Lilith stuff for me, is that it is so important for us to trust what our bodies need. It is about trusting that and deprogramming the conditioning that says that there is something wrong with it. And so we have this understanding or this fear that by trusting and succumbing, that's the word that keeps on popping up here, is you have succumbed to your primal urges, you have succumbed to your primal nature. You're not succumbing to anything, you're accepting them. You're accepting that my body needs something. My body needs this physical thing that it is. And I don't have to sit down and make a list of why my body needs it. I might be able to do that in a week or a month or 10 years from now as I collect more data and I collect more information to explain it. And that's part of the process that I'm trying to share with this, is what happens in the aftermath of trusting that trusting those instincts, trusting where all of that information is coming from, why all that information is coming. But it doesn't make it any less important. And it's not succumbing to it is not a weakness. It is, that's it. It is not a weakness or a flaw to accept and follow the our primal urges, to be blunt about it. But it doesn't always mean what we think it means. It is something that is about wholeness, and in experiencing wholeness, we have to experience. We do experience things everything eventually comes down to a primal expression or basic physical need. Whether it's physical connection with other people, whether it's our sovereignty of controlling our own bodies, those two things are not exclusive of each other. The sovereignty of controlling our own body is what allows us to connect with others in ways that are mutually beneficial, that honor our own physical natures, and that honor the other people's physical natures. And so when we bring those things together, we can find ourselves releasing more and more out of our head. And that's one of the goals, is to get out of our heads. That is one of the goals that I hope to share with people. That is one of the goals that I hope to inspire in people as I talk about these things, is that no matter what, all of our physical reactions, needs, desires are valid. And they are not coming from a place of, they're coming from a place of understanding the physical world better. So maybe we are collecting data when we're doing this. Maybe we meet a new person. Let's talk about, sex and dating and whatever you want to, whatever floats your boat. And you're meeting somebody new, and you want to you're collecting information about them. You can ask 100 questions. You can have I was just talking to somebody about this. There's like a book, 35 questions to ask to fall in love, or something like that. And there's a podcast on that's a musical version of that. And you can ask somebody every single question on that. But there's something that comes from a physical connection with the person. There's something that doesn't mean that you have to jump into bed with them instantly or anything. You also trusting your instincts, physically taking your time with exploration for that is very, very important. But we can we get a lot from the physical cues from each other that maybe we don't get from asking a bunch of questions or the conversations. But the conversation, the other thing that this is prompting within me is this. I believe there's a saying or an understanding that 90% of communication is body language. And it's not even just body language. Like you see that, she's tossing her hair and she's sitting in a certain way, or your arms are crossed, or your arms are open. It tells a lot. These are signals, but this is still the mind trying to read. That is, maybe one body is putting out physical signals. The other body is trying to analyze those and trying to take in data in order to, again, analyze and understand what is presented right in front of them. But when we trust the bodies, when there is a human in front of us, or and energetically we can connect over in a lot of different ways. You don't necessarily have to have physical presence, but it helps a lot. And some people are in different places with that in their own lives, where they can get that vibe from a person by talking, by it's the underneath. It's not the words that matter. It's the energy that is attached to the words. And is that energy connecting? Are we feeling that energy? Are we feeling that connection with the other person? And what is it promoting in us? What is it awakening in us? And that's, we talk about this kind of instant chemistry and instant kind of sexual lust and attraction, but it is, because there's this human physical desire to have those needs met. And sometimes they just need to be met, and that's fine. There's no shame or guilt in expressing that, as long as everybody understands and everybody's on the same page or whatever. But when we're talking about really connecting with another person, but all of that stuff comes from this energetic exchange that happens between two people. Usually, again, there's lots of ways to experience these things, but it is about that physical awareness and those nuance, those hundreds of synapses and little bits of energy exchange that happens, and understanding of each other that is happening way outside of the head, way outside the mind, and is happening often in a spiritual and physical realm, but it's almost bypassing the mind. And so when we trust those instincts with another person, you can, another things that we talk about with this stuff is, somebody's good on paper. Like, oh, we have the same list, we have the same interests, we have the same blah, 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 blah. But we don't feel that. We don't feel that connection with the other person. And so maybe we try to rationalize something, or vice versa. We feel that connection. We feel that desire to be with another person, and none of it makes sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You're like, what the heck is happening? Have you come from hell to try? Okay, I kid. But none of it makes sense. Doesn't matter. If it's there, it's there. And, eventually there are things that we do as responsible adults to make things right and safe and blah 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 and blah blah blah, and emotionally safe for ourselves and physically safe for ourselves. And those are all important. But really, when we're trusting that energy exchange, the things that awaken within us, the things that we notice in our body. Do you get goosebumps when you think about them? Do you get goosebumps? Do you get, I'm somebody who shakes a lot, and I recently experienced being with somebody who, in some ways, I was quite attracted to I don't even know from where or how, and it doesn't matter. But I noticed I didn't shake when I was around them. And to me, that felt like it was, it made me understand that this was somebody who I felt really comfortable with, but wasn't somebody who actually lit me up. And wasn't somebody who because I thought that maybe the not shaking was a good sign. And there's no good or bad. And there's no bad relationships or anything. But I didn't shake. And it was a revelation to me that excitement wasn't really there like I thought it was. And then there are people in my life who I shake around all the time. And it's not because I'm so nervous, but I am. And I never, that bubbling, that excitement, that pure joy of being around another person. It doesn't matter. The rational, the rational things, the rational explanations, the rational judgments, or society's, what society thinks is correct, because there's nothing about this. That you trust your body and you trust your instincts, and that if you accept that as real and as something that is measuring things that are unmeasurable to your brain, you will have a much smoother path. And you'll still get your heart will still skip a beat. And you'll still get nervous. But those nerves are not a sign that there's something wrong. Often it's a sign that there's something right. And comfort expands and grows. But it doesn't, and is also really important. Beyond recognize that we all have many, many different kinds of relationships to explore and experience with each other. And the more we trust what our instinct said, is this, just because we're nervous doesn't mean it's not safe. And just because we're not nervous doesn't mean that it's healthy. So, or no, it can mean a lot of things. The point is, it can all mean a lot of things, and our bodies, we follow the cues of our bodies without trying to rationalize them, because it is beyond rational thought. It is much more complex, much more nuanced, and much more complicated than anything that our brains want to do or say. So enjoy your experiences. Trust what your bodies are saying, and stop trying to conform to what you think you are supposed to be, because you are you, and you are bumping into people and things and experiences all over this place, and you cannot possibly plan for everything or understand every possible tangent. Trust me, the way my brain works, it tries really, really hard, and it has a pretty good ability to do it. And I still cannot come up with every possible scenario. And the ones that are the best are usually the ones that are outside of that scope or off of my plan. So enjoy your day, and I hope to see you again. Thanks. Bye.